What is your favorite time of the year to go on a date?
Most people would probably say the summertime because everyone wants to get naked, but to me it's the fall.
I think it's fall. I mean, it's cuffing season for a reason, right?
As our planet warms to unthinkable temperatures, some animals, and even people, are forced to rethink dating habits they've been using for generations. In horned animals, like cows and goats, females typically prefer males with the largest horns. Larger horns also help males manage their body heat more effectively and keep them cool during warmer seasons, which will come in handy as global temperatures rise. And it's not just the males who are changing their tried and true mating practices. Take the fruit fly. Females typically choose only one male, but male fruit flies have a harder time producing healthy sperm in higher temperatures. As a result, female fruit flies have adapted, increasing their number of mates in warmer environments, as shown in lab studies. We decided to take to the streets to see how climate and weather are impacting the dating lives of whoever would talk to me.
He is a 10, but he doesn't believe in climate change.
Oh, 0, negative, like 5.
Oh gosh, that is rough. Probably a 4, actually.
They would just be a stupid 10.
No matter how you look at it, climate change is disrupting how males and females have traditionally chosen their mates. Will animals be able to adapt, and adapt fast enough to beat the heat? Only time will tell.
Hi everyone! Thank you for joining us. This is so exciting for you. That was me on the video. This is me in real life. Today I'm going to talk about the column that I write called Hidden Planet. That video is actually part of the column. There's a whole 4.5-minute long version as well as the article, which I'll talk about. But we were looking at how climate change is affecting how animals mate and date. And then we also extended that to humans, which we'll get to a little bit later. Today, you've heard a lot about how climate change is affecting different continents. My column focuses more on the places you might not expect it to hit. Oh, he's got it. So that's what I'm going to talk about for Hidden Planet. My name is Kasha Patel. I am a science journalist at The Post. I cover environment, weather, and climate. And I really like my job because every day and all day I get to talk to scientists, and I'm always learning new things. Like I learned that astrophysicists are very good spellers because they're constantly spelling all these really long, complicated words like heliopause, spectroscopy, insufficient funding. Before I came at The Post, I actually used to work at a small science startup called NASA. Outside of my day job, I actually work as a stand-up comedian for about 10 years. And I specialize specifically in science-themed comedy. And if you think science comedy is made up, it kind of is. I think of science-themed comedy as finding humor in science, whether you do it inherently, you find what's funny about that situation, or you create your own humor. I'm going to demonstrate this with you right now with an original game called Climate Solution or Hollywood Plot. So for this game, we're going to need people to take out their cell phones, and you're going to open up your camera app, and then you're going to scan a QR code, and I'm going to give you this scenario, and you're going to vote in real time of whether you think this is a climate solution or something Hollywood made up. For the first scenario, countries across the world band together when they learn household appliances are accidentally destroying their owners. All right, we have about not that many people voting yet. All right, we're getting to it. I hope more of you vote in November is all I gotta say. But we'll get through this. All right, I'm gonna close polling in 5, 4, 3, 2. Some of you just don't want to use your cell phones. I applaud you. 1, the answer is this is a climate solution. Some of you got this. This was the Montreal Protocol, which in my opinion is one of the happiest climate stories that we have, right? So you guys might all know this, but we had these chemicals that were being emitted by our aerosol cans, all these kind of our household appliances, and they were destroying our ozone layer, our Earth's natural sunscreen. But then we had this international agreement, and we took those out. And this NASA model here shows what would have happened if we didn't have the Montreal Protocol in 2064. And as you can see, it's all blue, and blue is not good. Next one, a simple man wears the same clothes every day. Just a simple man wears the same clothes every day. All right, many people see this as a climate solution. I feel like for many of you, it might be a personal climate solution. And I should say there's no wrong answer except the wrong answer. So, all right, we're going to close polling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is, oh, whoa, we are never going to know, are we? The answer is Groundhog Day. Bill Murray, who knew that he was such a climate advocate back in the day? In order to slow the catastrophic breakup of the Antarctic ice sheet, a highly specialized team designs a snow cannon that could reverse the damage. But will it work? Do we think this is a climate solution or Hollywood plot? This one is getting a little more even. Climate solution, Hollywood plot. This is our last one, so if you haven't voted, now's your chance to get in on it. We're going to close polling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer is, this is actually a published study. This is a published study, but it is important to read it from top to bottom because they do have this sentence in there that says, the practical execution of the endeavor is beyond the scope of this study, and it would be a technical challenge in many ways. So if you put Hollywood, I think you could also be right. Now, we have such an intelligent crowd here. I want you guys to do one last poll for me. This is what I do. I love science comedy, but I'm curious of, do you think science comedy has any value? I can tell you when I started, I just thought it was fun. You know, it was something that I knew my entire life, something, that's just a fun thing. But do you think it could be good in educating people? Do you think it could be good in changing people's minds? Yes to both, or no, it's just fun. It's just how I want to unwind after a long climate summit. Oh, wow, this is very inspiring to me. Yes to both. That's so wonderful. So I can tell you, I was skeptical when I started that it had any use beyond just making people laugh. So I decided to do my own formal and informal research about it. So I actually have a TEDx talk where I analyzed over 500 of my stand-up jokes. And I wanted to see which ones performed the best. And it turned out that my science jokes performed better than my non-science jokes. And then I worked with researchers across the country to make this into a study where we used my science jokes and we put them in front of people to see how effective was the communication. And we found out it didn't really matter what you looked like if you were a scientist or a comedian if your joke was funny enough. And that was the key. Now, what does this have to do with the Washington Post? All right, Katya's up here. Cool, she has a weird skill set. How does that go with a media legacy company like the Washington Post? Well, 2 words, hidden planet. Hidden planet is this space where I can talk about climate, weather, science, environment, all these things, but in a way that I can tap into people's natural awe about Earth. Sometimes it's a place where I can put a little more levity in, which you saw in the video. And also, we try and create this environment, like a party-like atmosphere in the comments section, and people get very into it. People get very into it, trust me. For example, this is a science article that I wrote. Can't go to the moon. This crater in Canada is the next best thing. Now, you can see this crater in this photo, and you can see what's really, really interesting about this is it has the same type of rocks here as it does on the moon. So there was a researcher who was sending NASA astronauts there just kind of informally saying, hey, like this is what you're looking for when you go to the moon. Also, it's a very remote location, so if something bad happens or you need to find your way out, that's kind of similar to what's going to happen on the moon. So I wrote this sentence in here, and it said, much like most of my dating life, the remote location of the crater is isolated from most humans and mimics the aloneness felt on the moon. And the comments did not disappoint. We had a lot of people who were just very positive, well-written article. But I do like the highlighted one. I'm too old to compete, Kasha, but with 3 scientist sons, I dream of having a daughter-in-law like you. Stay true. I got multiple marriage proposals out of this, so if any journalist is having a hard time, just write that you're single in all your articles. It will work out eventually. Now, that's all well and good when you talk about something like a crater, but what do you do when you're talking about climate change, right? We have this crisis, it's doom and gloom, people are already sad about it. How can you make something like that more engaging, more fun? Well, you have to do it with a specific angle. This is an article that I wrote shortly after the IPCC came out. This is talking about extreme weather, how hurricanes, heat waves, flooding, it's going to get a lot worse in coming decades. But it's very technical, right? It's a lot of work, it's a lot of numbers, it's a lot of data. It can kind of go over people's head, they gloss over it. So I pitched to our Washington Post TikTok team a more visual way to show that.
Heat waves are going to get a lot worse as global temperatures rise. But how much worse? Let's take a look. Dave, we'll see events that used to occur on average once every 50 years increase in frequency and intensity. Today, heat waves are 5 times more likely to occur than they did in the pre-industrial era. At 1.5 degrees Celsius, heat waves will be 9 times more likely and 2 degrees hotter. Nope, sorry, you're also going through a drought. At 2 degrees Celsius, 14 times more likely and 3 degrees hotter. Oh yeah, your risk for fires has also gone up.
So what I like about that video, it's pretty subtle, but we also get this idea of compound events, right? Like not only are going to have heat waves, we're going to be also having drought at the same time and fire. And we do all of that in like 30 seconds, which I think is pretty incredible. This is this next article, how mating is changing in a hotter world. Like I said, I already showed you that top article, or the top video. But this was interesting because it's not based off of any single study. It was just something that I thought of just because of how I know biology works. And I had to interview a lot of people to kind of see, is this a thing we're seeing? And it is an emerging science. So, I mean, we are all familiar with peacocks and dragonflies and, you know, the big mane of lions and everything. And the idea is, like, we learn it in school, right? Like, oh, the peacock, they have this, like, ornate, beautiful colors. It takes more energy to do that. Sometimes they'll do this nice dance for the female. But what happens in a warming world where it just becomes harder to live day to day? Can you expend that same energy to attract the mate? And what some of the research found is that, for instance, dragonflies, they are losing their darker pigments. When they have the darker pigments, they do absorb more sunlight and they get hotter. And it's unprecedented from what researchers have seen in previous studies. And at the same time, we're also seeing sometimes females in higher temperatures are changing their taste. That perhaps they don't want the male, or I mean, if a seahorse, it can be reversed, but perhaps they don't want the male that's expending so much energy into themselves because now they're not going to have enough energy to put back into the relationship. This sounds a lot like humans right now, but you know, it's not. We do see some of this with humans as well. Obviously, humans are weakly sexually selected, and we have a lot of messy things going on, but there was a study that showed when there were days higher than 80 degrees, birth rates actually went down 8 to 10 months later. Now, there was a separate study that showed it's probably not because people were doing it less on those really hot days, but it had something to do with the reproductive health, which we saw in fruit flies and labs and stuff. So there was something about it that 8 to 10 months later, there was just lower birth rate. There was also, you guys might be familiar, OkCupid, they put out some data showing that if you mention climate change in your profile, you do get more matches and you do get more likes. I feel like we're just giving you a lot of dating advice for this one. This was one of the comments for the article. I like the amount of effort this person put into it. The evolution of human dating. Cavemen, hey babe, wanna come over? I have a dead animal. Early farmers, wanna chuck some corn? Renaissance man, I will pay you 15 gold coins for your daughter. And today, when I come over to my house, I have air conditioning. And then this is a recent hidden planet that I did. This, you might have read about this, it may be by me, maybe in the Washington Post or in other places, but basically it's a fascinating story. Last September, there was this underground rumble that lasted for 9 days. 9 days. Scientists have never known a seismic signal to last for 9 days, and they had no idea what it was. Some scientists thought, oh, maybe the instruments are broken, but it was seen globally, and also they built the instruments and they're like, no, they're good, they're good. They also thought maybe it's a new volcano being born, but they put that one out. Someone also said aliens, because that's always valid. And then they couldn't figure this out, so they just named it an unidentified seismic object, like a UFO, but a USO. What they found out through, like I said, it took them about a year to do this. What they found out through their computer models and getting all this data from the ground, they found out that it actually happened from a glacier on a mountaintop. The glacier melted so much over decades because of climate change, melted so much that it can no longer support the mountain rock above it, that the mountain rock fell, created a huge landslide that fell into the ocean below, into the fjord below, the water below, and that created a huge tsunami. And the tsunami energy was so much that it created these waves splashing back and forth for 9 days. And every time it splashed back and forth, it created the seismic signal. So it was just like an earthquake happening over and over and over again. And this was a tremendous effort. It took about 68 people in 15 different countries to come together to figure this out. And they were having a good time with it too. Well, I wrote it in this. One of the scientists tried recreating the tsunami in their bathtub. It did not work. But I think it's really interesting because, like I said, if you read this article in other outlets, they wrote it as just a very straightforward climate story. But I think by me really enjoying bringing out the details and talking to the scientists, I think this commenter really summarized, this is how the world works best when people around the world put forth their best efforts working together to solve a problem, and they do. Now, this is Hidden Planet. Maybe you're sitting here like, oh, that's fun and quirky, but climate comedy is not really my thing. And that's valid. That's completely fair. I'm not saying using comedy to talk about climate change is better than any long investigative series. I'm just saying it's different. In my perspective, comedy has inherent properties that can make these doom and gloom difficult topics more palatable for the general public. But even beyond that, when I think of how to write something in comedy, you have to think of how to be creative. So that's what I want to do. I want to urge all of you to think about your current climate communication and how you can take that a step further and make it more creative. I choose to do that through comedy, but you guys probably have a different way to do that. You can use this QR code to see some of the Hidden Planet stories. You can also follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Casablanca. I post a lot of my stories from Hidden Planet. I'll put it into TikTok form and things like that, including that last one that we just saw, which people really liked. I want to leave you guys on one last video that I had a lot of fun making with the Washington Post TikTok team. We put it around the time of the COP conference.
Here's 50% of my carbon emissions.
I ask you to triple your carbon cutting budget. That's going to need systemic solutions, y'all.
Well, what if I take one of these reusable bags to the grocery store?
Or you can incentivize businesses to decarbonize.
What if I unplug all my appliances while I'm not using them?
Or you can support research and development for zero emissions technology.
What if I turn off the sink while brushing my teeth?
Throw in the river.
But it's polluted.
Thank you so much for joining me. I've been Kasha Patel. You guys have been wonderful. Please stay tuned. We have so many things coming up. Right now, we're going to go to a short break and can actually go outside and see it in this lobby area. We have our Washington Post cartoonist who has been live cartooning all the things. So please check that out and come back here. We have a rest of the great day. Thank you so much. I've been Kasha Patel. Have a good night.